I said this earlier, the average test score for a black individual was around 1300 SAT, about 3.2 GPA. For a white or Asian, it would be about a 3.9 to 4 GPA and about nearly a perfect SAT. So you are disenfranchising and stereotyping and prejudicing against whites or Asians in favor of blacks.
You're not prejudicing against whites or Asians, though, because DEI is not on a race basis. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion of all people. Affirmative action is what is intended to address racial inequality, but DEI isn't on the basis of race.
Well, so DEI is a project of the affirmative action movement. So one comes before the other. He signed an executive order against both.
Hello, so you're welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, BB Hairfurs, and I'm back again for another reaction video. So I bring to you this one, and the title states, Nehima from Jubilee shows up for rematch against Charlie. Nehima from Jubilee shows up for a rematch against Charlie. Guys, I can't wait for us to watch this, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, do well to hit the subscribe button, subscribe to our channel, give us a huge thumbs up, and without further ado, let's get right into this video.
Hi, Charlie. Yeah, you're gonna have to lower that one for me.
What's your name again?
Thank you. Naima. How are you
Naima,
doing?
it's been a while.
It's been a minute. How have you been?
Great.
That's fantastic.
We won.
You did do that. I mean, you didn't, but Trump did. Yes.
The collective we, yeah.
Yes, the collective we. So speaking of Trump, I do want to talk a little bit about his policy on DEI. As you know, in his first weeks in office, he signed the executive order declaring that DEI is both unlawful and a threat to national unity. And I just kind of want to ask you to elaborate on why DEI is unlawful.
Well, based on the Civil Rights Act, which I have disagreements with, but based on the Civil Rights Act, which is the law of the land, it says you shall not discriminate based on color, race, creed, or origin of nationality.
Yes.
And DEI definitionally does those things.
How does it definitionally do those things?
So, for example, if you say you are going to hire a certain amount of people or have scholarships only for a certain people, you are then prejudicing against another group.
Which group are you prejudiced against?
White people, Asians as well. I mean, white people are an easy one off the top of your head. So, for example, in the Harvard admissions case, I said this earlier, the average test score for a black individual was around 1300 SAT, about 3.2 GPA. For a white or Asian, it would be about a 3.9 to 4 GPA and about nearly a perfect SAT. So you are disenfranchising and stereotyping and prejudicing against whites or Asians in favor of blacks.
You're not prejudicing against whites or Asians, though, because DEI is not on a race basis. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion of all people. Affirmative action is what is intended to address racial inequality, but DEI isn't on the basis of race.
Well, so DEI is a project of the affirmative action movement. So one comes before the other. He signed an executive order against both, for the record, so I wasn't sure which one you were talking about.
I'm talking about DEI.
So DEI, it depends what we mean in practice. So I can give you one example. There are black-only graduation ceremonies at certain schools, or black-only dormitories.
But those are kind of student-led. I mean, I'm part of a black-only organization, and it's run by students. It's not through the school.
Let's play it out. So if there is a black-only, let's pretend, which it's not, that building is black-only. If I said that, if that building was white,
like the campus center?
No, I said let's pretend it's not.
Yes, hypothetically, yes.
Hypothetically, if that building was white only, you would agree that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act.
Yes, but there are no buildings on campus that are black only and white only.
Well,
and by the way,
but there are on other campuses.
No,
though.
but in those dormitories that are like culturally specific, you don't have to be that culture to live there. They're not going to not allow you to be black to live in a black dormitory.
You would
no,
be
Ujima at Stanford. White people do live at Ujima. That's not.
I don't know about that specific example, but if it says black only dormitory,
but it doesn't say black only.
But okay, how about this? How about if we had? Well, it does.
It doesn't. Where does it say that?
Just to be clear, well, in the title. But let's pretend it says
where?
black.
Like what school? Where does it say black only building?
Eastern Washington University, Portland State University, just off the top of my head, San Jose State University.
They say black only dormitory. And if a white person were to apply to live there,
it's a black affinity cultural space of which only black individuals are accepted and governed for black individuals. But can we have white affinity cultural spaces?
You can have a white affinity cultural space. The activity is the issue is that you're saying black only. It's not black only. It's a black affinity cultural space. But anyone is invited if they would like to participate.
I would, first of all,
you cannot legislatively not allow someone of any race to participate in something. That doesn't exist.
We agree. That's the spirit of the diversity, equity, inclusion order, is that DEI in practice, again, we have to go through example after example, is discrimination, prejudice, and segregation.
Well, let's talk about DEI in practice. Let's talk about DEI programs in the workforce, because DEI programs in the workforce happen to benefit veterans, they benefit people with disabilities, they benefit people at an economic desperate, they benefit lots of people that is not just on the basis of race. And to me, it feels like you're conflating DEI with pro-blackness or black only, which is not the definition of DEI.
So let's take a high-profile DEI example. Is that cool? Just maybe one we can play around with?
Okay.
Which got me in a lot of viral trouble, which I don't care, which is pilots.
I got in a lot of viral trouble, too. I was debating this guy,
I know. And he kept interrupting you.
He did!
I know, right? Which is that, let's say DEI, a project of DEI at United Airlines was that we want to get 40% of our pilots to be black or women of color, or women or people of color.
40%.
50. I'm sorry, to get up to 50. It was at like 6%. So therefore, they wanted to make a push towards that, and it was currently at 6%. We look at that and we say, wow, you're going to have to lower standards to get to that goal.
Why would you have to lower standards?
Well, because...
Are you saying that black people are inherently inferior?
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that, black people are only 13% of the population, so you want 13% of the population...
Women are not 13% of the population. Women are 50% of the population.
Yeah, but women do not make up a majority of people that want to become pilots. In fact, the vast majority of women don't want to be pilots.
Maybe they would want to become pilots if the barriers for entry weren't...
See, now we're going down a different but equally fun direction, which is male-female differences. Men much more likely want to be involved in heavy machinery, mechanics, they want to be pilots, they want to be tank operators, they want to be police officers, whereas women much more likely want to be, I'll get to you, Mason, don't worry, and I remember your name.
Yes, can Mason go? They won't let him go.
I'll let Mason go. I'll let Mason go. But just, Mason, have some patience. We did this last time, okay? But do you understand, at least from our perspective, because it's no good for us to go back and forth again, maybe from our perspective, that we worry that the pursuit of diversity can mean the compromising of excellence?
Charlie Kirk, this country is diverse. You can't just say the pursuit of diversity is compromising excellence. Diversity literally just means difference. This country is 13% black, it's 14% immigrant, it's 1/5 of every person in this country is Hispanic, it's 7% homosexual, and 50% of the country disagrees with you. Okay, diversity is America. You cannot say
all of that is true.
That you are America first if you do not care about half of America.
I care about them so much, in fact.
You care about them so much that you don't want to give them
I didn't interrupt you.
access
I care
to
about
equal rights.
Well, hold on. No one said rights. Hold on a second. No. I care about them.
It is. It's equal rights. It's equal access.
Let me finish. Now, who's interrupting who? I care about them so much. I want the only thing that they're ever judged on is to be their character or their competency, not their skin color.
Okay, so you want it to be a meritocracy.
Yes.
So let's talk about a meritocracy.
Okay.
What experience does Kash Patel have to run the FBI?
He has amazing experience.
No, he doesn't. He wanted to start a UFC fighting program in the FBI. He has amazing experience.
I got 5 words in. He was the most important thing. He was a public defender.
That's not what that's not the job of the FBI. He has no experience in the FBI.
He was a public defender and he was a special prosecutor.
Was he ever a member of the FBI?
No, but
he doesn't have the merit to have
hold on a second.
All right, let's do another example.
But
what experience does Linda McMahon? What experience does Linda McMahon have to run?
She ran the Small Business Administration in the first term, which is a big organization. She was the head of the SBA.
When she was the CEO of WWE,
I'm not even talking about that. She ran the SBA.
One of her employees was engaging in pedophilic behavior with their ring boys under her watch.
I'm not going to defend that.
And now she is somehow qualified to be responsible for all of America's children?
Hold on a second. She was previously a cabinet secretary and then became a different cabinet secretary. That's like a one-to-one.
Yeah, and then before that, she was enabling a pedophile.
So what you're first of all, I don't know about that instance. If that's true, that's wrong.
That's very much true. How do you not know about that, Charlie?
I don't know about every...
It's like very much...
Okay. Again,
public information. It's really important to know that the head of the Department of Education is currently in a lawsuit.
But let me finish the point, which is that the WWE can be easily made fun of. That's a serious business, though. It's a multi-billion-dollar business.
It is, that engaged in pedophilic
Okay,
activities.
of which I denounce. I don't support that. However, she was head of the SBA, and now she's head of the Department of Education. Tell me another unqualified person.
Another unqualified
Is
person?
Marco Rubio
Pete
unqualified?
Hegseth.
Okay.
No, actually, I
hold
think
on.
Marco is slightly more
let's
qualified.
talk about Hegseth. He's the most qualified because he actually accepted enemy fire and lost loved ones and friends of his own.
That doesn't make you...
Hold on.
Dude,
to
that doesn't give you...
run the U.S. military, to be a warrior, not just an academic general, that's very important.
Look, dude, I respect veterans. My boyfriend's a veteran. I love veterans. That being said, not every person who is a veteran is qualified to run the Department of Defense.
I think he's also shown the last couple of weeks he's doing a pretty phenomenal job. The prior head of the DOD, Lloyd Austin, could barely climb up a flight of stairs. Pete Hegseth is up at 5 a.m. doing PT with the troops, running miles, and then doing an entire day at the Pentagon. And you might say that doesn't matter. I actually think physical fitness and being a good example to our troops is very important when you're the head of the Department of Defense.
Okay, but being the head of the Department of Defense is not about doing push-ups.
Hold on, but first of all, it's actually just refreshing versus Mark Milley and Lloyd Austin. But secondly, I will say the criteria is that he's a warrior's warrior. He's someone that was in the front lines and actually received medals and knows what it's like to lose loved ones. And the other people that were qualified, Naima, were people that got us in endless wars, people that never saw combat. I think it's finally time that we have someone in combat that runs the Secretary of Defense. I think that's immensely qualified.
Okay, sure. So we'll take Pete Hegseth for Department of Defense.
Yes, he's doing a great job.
We'll take someone who enabled pedophilia for the Department of Education.
That's an unfair
We'll take Kash Patel, who has never worked in the FBI.
He was a prosecutor, so the FBI's a...
Dude, do you remember what he said when he first got the nomination?
Do you want to go back to Kash Patel for a second?
He said, yeah. I'm like, this is sick.
Okay,
can we go back to Kash Patel, though? That is, like, insanely inappropriate.
Can we go back to Kash Patel?
All right, guys, so thank you so much for watching. This is Charlie, and we had another heated one. This particular one was very heated, and I think it was a very interruptive conversation. Yes, so now this Naima from Jubilee. Yeah, first of all, I want to talk about her manner of approach. She came in a very interruptive manner. She was very, very interruptive, you know. I don't know if there's any word like that. When Charlie was talking, she wasn't giving him that room, that chance to, you know, portray his points to the fullest. She keeps interrupting, thereby making the conversation not to be meaningful. I don't think I was able to grab something meaningful from this conversation because she was so interruptive. But thank God for Charlie. Charlie is a man full of wisdom. So there's something that I noticed about her. I will definitely say the good part. Right, she came very prepared. This lady came very prepared, and I love the fact that she came with a written note. Like I used to say this on my channel often. So if you want to have a conversation with Charlie, you must be grounded intellectually. You must have gathered facts, you know, because Charlie spew facts, and you know he doesn't just talk anyhow. So you cannot just come and have adequate intellectual conversation with Charlie when you're not grounded. I love the fact that she came with a written note. It shows that she came prepared, and she kind of diverted from the main juice of the message, which was the DI funding. The DI funding is a good thing. You know, it's a good thing that Donald Trump did to cut it off, because I don't think there was a need there's any need for that DI funding. But then I just love the way Charlie responded to her. This conversation wasn't really meaningful because of the way she came defending. She came with a defensive technique, right? And you know, everyone was just at a point the crowd was like they want another person in, right? So I don't have much to say, but guys, I want to say this, that we still need to do what is right. You want to hire people to fit into a particular position or a particular field, you put them in because they are competent. You're not looking at the skin color, you're not looking at the their race, you're not looking at their race, their tribe, you know, their heterogeneous, you know, the regions where they come from. You're not looking at the skin color, you're not looking at, you know, probably whether he's black or an older. You're looking at someone that is very competent, someone that is good at what he does, right? So let's get this sink into our brain. Thank you so much for watching. It's still your girl BB Hayfers React, and you're welcome to my channel. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of today's video.